Bam! Mr. Tarrou. In this video, we're not doing math and we're not calming down the hair. I haven't had a haircut since spring break and I'm not going to have one until I get back into the actual classroom, hopefully soon. So we're going wild, wearing my Bob Ross shirt to match my Bob Ross hair, and we're going to revisit something I did with just a quick vlog about around 2016. It's about 4 or 5 years ago, where I showed you how to break down some pallets and upcycle some wood to rebuild some cast iron benches, much like this one that we have here that's just seat size. You know, but it's been about 4 or 5 years, and you know, with pallet wood you get whatever you get. This time we thought, well, let's look up some cedar, get some cedar or oak, and you know, if we're going to take the time to rebuild these benches, you know, do it with some wood that's going to last more than about 4.5 years. The cedar was expensive, the oak was very expensive, but we were going to go ahead and spend some money since the ends were just continuously being recycled. And my wife, being the awesome lady that she is and always looking for an opportunity to upcycle, found an awesome source for some wood that we could use. And so this video isn't to rehash what I did about 4 or 5 years ago. You can check out that video. I'll put the link in the description below or above about the process that we went through for rebuilding these benches, but to instead give you some ideas of places you can look and resources you can use to get some good wood to recycle, to upcycle, to make some projects. And here's what my wife found on Facebook Marketplace. One of our local churches, for maybe taking advantage for the fact that they you know, had to close down for this crazy pandemic, is rehabbing one of the rooms in their church, and they decided, you know, I don't know why, because I didn't go to this church, to remove their 70-year-old church pews. And I can see why. Actually, I think I know why, because as we were going to pick up this wood, it became clear that some of these seats were definitely starting to separate, the glue lines. And the reason why this one board has so many pieces along the back is because they had to start screwing them together to keep the seats together. So they took them out, they sold some apparently, and I don't know what they're going to put back in their place, but after they got done selling as many pews as they could, they just put an ad out and said if anyone could use some 70-year-old poplar, that it is free. So what did we do? We went down, picked up the seats, and you see we have a lot of individual strips of wood, and this is how we got the seat bottoms apart so that we could use them to rebuild our benches once again. And I don't think I forgot anything, but here's what we used for the project. Pretty flat crowbar, rubber mallet, you'll see how we use that in a moment, sander, clamps, screwdrivers, a couple of drills, actually a drill and an impact driver. Got my circular saw, a little square to make sure the cuts at the end were, you know, of course, perpendicular. And always you need a tape measure, and, you know, I'm not a woodworker. Hopefully this Valspar stain and sealer works as long as it says, because the project really came out to be nice. Basically, the hardest part that I had to figure out, and actually it turned out to be not that difficult, was how are we going to take these seat bottoms that, you know, some of them actually were already apart, but what was I going to do to get these individual pieces of wood that were glued together, you know, like the ad said, approximately 70 years ago? How are we going to get this apart to make the individual slats for the bench? Was I going to cut along the glue lines? Wasn't quite sure, but this is what I figured out. Putting the end of this narrow crowbar right at the line between these two pieces of wood where the glue is, with the rubber mallet, hit the end of the crowbar, and thankfully what was able to happen was this wood split very neatly along the glue line. And I'm using a little paint scraper here. I'm going to push this just a bit, get this paint scraper in the crack, and just continue to separate that line. I only had one piece of wood that actually did not break along the line. So I'm putting the other end of this crowbar in here, and I'm just going to change this angle a little bit. and just twist my crowbar very, very slowly until that wood continue to split along the glue line. Now, beyond this, all I did was, with the aid of my wife, we sanded along the edges, rounded off this the sharp edge of each of these individual pieces. Some were too thin to use. We sanded off the finish with some 120 grit sandpaper and then stained them with that Valspar stain and sealer. And this was the result. With 3 coats of this Canyon Brown Valspar 1-coat exterior stain and sealer, we ended up with 2 cast iron benches that I'm telling you look like they belong in a resort. We're talking about hardwood benches this time, not just soft wood that we got from a pallet. Oh yes, there's the air conditioner you're always hearing in my videos. We used some 2.5-inch stainless steel carriage bolts, and the other additional challenge that I had putting these together was that the seat bottoms of these pews, of course, have a little bit of a curvature to make them comfortable. So some pieces were, well, thicker than others. So as I laid out these pieces along the table, not only did I have to use some slats of wood that were wide enough and therefore strong enough to make a 48-inch, I believe, I'll double check that length bench, but the thicknesses had to be such that they went from really thick to thin as we make this seat, so you can't actually really tell those variances as you sit on your benches. So if you need some more detailed instruction of what we did to rebuild these benches, just check out my old video. But this time we were able to rebuild them 4.5 years later with some, I don't know if they're old growth, but very hardwood, very dense wood that this time it should last a lot longer. So just wanted to inspire you to look at for more sources than just old pallets. This came from church pews. My wife just reminded me that we have made furniture for neighbors by using old growth tongue and groove paneling that we've literally found in the trash because we live in a neighborhood that's pretty old. We got houses that were built in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. Just keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open in Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. You can find all types of wood to, basically save from the landfill. Upcycle that wood, make some great projects with it. Bam! I'm Mr. True. Go do some upcycling.